All right, today we are cracking open an ancient blueprint. But this isn't for a company or a building. It's the organizational chart for an entire society built around holiness. We're about to walk through Numbers 18, a super detailed system of sacred jobs, divine paychecks, and the, well, life-for-death consequences if you get it wrong.
So, here's how we're going to tackle this. First, we'll look at the sacred boundary, the high-stakes rules of the game. Then we'll see exactly how the priests got paid, their portion. After that, we'll cover the Levites' inheritance, and we'll finish with this really fascinating idea, a tithe of the tithe. Let's build this thing from the ground up.
Okay, first up, the sacred boundary. And listen, this isn't just about job descriptions. This is about drawing lines in the sand that literally separate life from death. It's all about who does what and who is responsible when things go wrong in God's holy space.
We kick things off with verse 1, and right away the pressure is on. God looks at Aaron, the high priest, and basically says, any mistake, any slip-up connected to this holy sanctuary, that's on you. You and your sons. Just picture this heavy, invisible weight, glowing with a dangerous red energy, being lowered right onto their shoulders. It's their burden to carry, and theirs alone.
Now in verse 2, the support crew arrives. The Levites, their kinsmen, are brought in to be the priests' backup, their support team. But verse 3 draws a serious line. I want you to visualize a shimmering electric red force field humming around the holy objects and the altar. The Levites can work right up to that line, but if any one of them crosses it, it's instantly lethal. Not just for them, but for the priests who are supposed to be watching.
Okay, so verses 4 through 7 really nail all this down. Verse 4 says the Levites are joined to the priest, but no outsider can come near. Then verse 5 gives the reason. The priests have to guard the sanctuary so that God's wrath doesn't break out on everyone else. And in verse 6, God says he has personally taken the Levites as a gift for the priests to help them do their work. And finally, verse 7 sums it all up. The priesthood is a gift for service, but that final warning is repeated. Any unauthorized person who gets too close will be put to death. No ambiguity there.
All right, so with all those high-stakes rules in place, you've got to be wondering, how did these guys get paid? Well, this was no volunteer gig. It was a divinely designed profession, and the payment system was meant to keep them totally focused on their sacred duties.
In verse 8, the compensation plan begins. God says to Aaron, I'm putting you in charge of my special contributions. To really see this, picture God handing Aaron a set of heavy, ornate, golden keys. These aren't keys to a building. They're the keys to the entire divine storehouse, the system of gifts that will provide for his family.
Now, you're going to hear this term a lot, heave offering. So what is it? Well, it's not just any old gift. It's a sacred portion that was physically lifted up or heaved toward heaven. It's this symbolic gesture of presenting it to God first, before it's given to the priests. It's a visual reminder of where the provision really comes from.
Okay, verse 9 gets into the nitty-gritty. It's talking about the most holy food, the parts of the grain, sin and trespass offerings that weren't burnt on the altar. Then verse 10 sets the rule for who gets to eat it. Just imagine a special, consecrated dining room, filled with sunlight, right there in the sanctuary courtyard. And only the male priests can eat this super holy meal in that holy place.
But then check out the contrast in verse 11. This is so interesting. Other holy gifts, these heave offerings, can be eaten by the entire priestly family. It specifically says your sons and your daughters. The only condition is that they have to be ceremonially clean. So you can see the circle of provision getting wider here, including the whole household.
And the quality of this provision? Top-notch. Verse 12 makes it clear. The priests get the absolute best of everything. Picture the very first richest drops of golden olive oil coming out of the press. That's for the priests. And verse 13 adds that the first ripe fruits of the land also belong to them. This isn't about leftovers. It's about getting the very best first.
Now, verse 15 brings in a huge concept, the principle of the firstborn. Basically, every first male offspring, whether it's a person or an animal, is considered holy to God. And because of that, it's given to the priests. But there's a really important exception. A firstborn son has to be redeemed. In other words, he has to be bought back by his family.
So what's the price for buying back your firstborn son? Verse 16 gives us the exact number. It's 5 shekels of silver. Just picture a father's hand carefully counting out 5 heavy, shiny silver coins and placing them in the priest's hand. It's the price of redemption. But, and this is a big but, Verse 17 clarifies that this whole buying back thing doesn't apply to certain animals. The firstborn of a cow, a sheep, or a goat, they can't be redeemed. They're considered holy. So what happens to them? Verse 18 explains they're sacrificed, and their meat becomes another part of the priest's food supply.
And verse 19, wow, it seals this whole deal with this incredible image, a covenant of salt. Now, why salt? Because salt is a preservative. It stops decay. So to picture this, imagine God and Aaron making this permanent agreement. And then, to seal it, they sprinkle salt over it. It's a sign that this promise will never spoil, never go bad, never be broken. It's forever.
So this all sounds pretty good for the priests, right? Well, verse 20 reveals the trade-off. While all the other tribes of Israel get a piece of the promised land, the priests get nothing. No land at all. Imagine a map of Israel being divided up, but their section isn't land. It's just filled with a brilliant divine light. God says to them, you don't get land. I am your portion. I am your inheritance.
Okay, so the priests are provided for. But what about the Levites? The support crew, doing all that essential work, hauling, cleaning, guarding. How are they compensated for their service? Let's find out. Verse 21 lays it out, plain and simple. Their paycheck is the tithe. I want you to visualize a tenth of all the produce from all of Israel. Grain, fruit, wine, everything, flowing like a massive river from every corner of the nation, and it's all directed to the Levite families. That is their inheritance, their salary for doing their important work at the sanctuary.
So let's just pause and look at this. You've got these two distinct payment plans. The priests get the very specific, holy offerings that are connected directly to the altar. The Levites, on the other hand, get the general tithe, a full 10% of the whole nation's agricultural economy. And what's the one thing they have in common? No land. They are both set apart for sacred duty.
But hold on, the flow of money, or, grain and oil, doesn't stop there. There's one more layer to this system, a final twist that completes the whole circle.
Now, get this. Verse 26 says that after the Levites receive their full tithe from the people of Israel, they themselves have to give a tithe from it. They have to take a tenth of their tithe and offer it up to the Lord. It's basically a tithe on their own income, making sure that they are also participating as givers in the system. So you're probably asking, where does this tithe of the tithe go? Verse 28 gives us the answer. It goes directly to Aaron the priest. And verse 29 makes it clear, just like before, it has to be the absolute best part of what they received. Imagine the Levites carefully sorting through their income, picking out the finest grain and the purest oil to pass along to the priests.
And finally, verse 31 wraps it up for the Levites. Once they've given that best portion away, the rest is theirs. It's their paycheck, their reward for their service. But verse 32 ends the whole chapter right back where we started, with a deadly serious warning. Respect the holy things, don't profane these sacred gifts, because if you do, the consequence is death.
You see, this whole chapter isn't just a list of ancient rules. It's a complete economic and social blueprint, built entirely on holiness, responsibility, and everyone depending on each other. It redefines a job as a sacred duty and wealth as a divine provision, which leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. How does structuring a society around what is sacred change the entire meaning of work and wealth, even for us today?